Yeah, now is, yeah, I got the link. I will post it.
And Arun, your host now.
I'll probably rename you. Julian, yesterday did you, oh, this is already live, right?
It is live now.
We can talk about it. We are celebrating 3 years. We are celebrating 3 years, right? So we can also talk about it. So that was regarding the national blockchain strategy. And they have acknowledged all the inputs that we gave as a community. I remember, Julian, you were part of it last year.
I was.
Early this year.
I was. It's very cool. I saw that, right? I saw that yesterday, right? On LinkedIn. Congratulations, right? Yes, I remember the whole process. That was a wonderful thing. Well done.
Thank you.
Yeah, I remember. Was it 6 months ago? It must have been.
I think so.
More than 6 months. I think in January, they accepted the feedback.
And they asked for some feedback. You guys had a few meetings, right? I attended a few of them, and then you put some feedback together, which is great, and you got recognition for that.
Yeah.
We see people joining in, so we'll give some more minutes before we get started. Mool said he will join in some minutes. We'll probably get started, and we are live on YouTube, so people can watch back. That. Right, so we can get started and we'll let people join in. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Welcome to Hyperledger India Chapter's final part of Blockchain Stories 2021. So over the past 3 weeks, it has been very successful event just because of the amount of knowledge that people are gaining on these calls and the kind of expertise and the subject matter experts that are coming in and then sharing their knowledge and learning about blockchain technology and as such. And today we'll continue the same learning series. Today we'll be learning about sustainable supply chains, starting from the produce forms to the all the way until the commercial products, merchandise products, and we'll see how blockchain is helpful in supply chains. And up first, we have our esteemed speaker Ganesh, who was executive at Verizon Media, and now he has started his own venture. It's called Fiducia AI, and we welcome Ganesh. And thanks for joining us in your late evening, Ganesh. Over to you.
Hey, Aaron, thank you, and thanks for having me on the platform. It's such a great pleasure. The moment I saw Hyperledger Fabric or Hyperledger India, I felt I'm coming back home. That's the feeling that I got. So just to give a little bit of background about myself, 97 is when I moved here, but a lot of the learning happened to me as I was raised in India, both culturally, educationally, and then since I've moved to the US, I've been doing information technology for a long time. The last decade, I've spent fairly large time, primarily focused on AI, artificial intelligence, building products on the cloud, all the way to the edge, trying to drive a revenue. So I don't recollect a situation where my team is building something and I don't know who the customer is. And that's been the strategy and approach. And interestingly, from 0 to tens of millions is what we accomplished. And in life, sometimes you start to realize purpose. What's purpose of life? And as I look forward, Fiducia AI has just, it's very early. It's just been incorporated. The purpose is primarily to bring in very advanced technology to AgTech. To bridge the digital divide or gap, to enhance efficiencies, right? To build a framework of trust that becomes a platform to tell stories. That way we all can actually start to look, listen, and start to trust the information on these platforms. So today on this call, I'll be reflecting the purpose of Fiducia AI and the areas where we would actually start to explore with very specific emphasis on 2 areas and primarily powered by artificial intelligence and Hyperledger Fabric, to be precise. And those are supply chain. That's one area. It's not that we want to transform supply chain. We want to coexist in supply chain to start to tell stories about produce as it starts to move from point A into consumer's hand. Citing very clear examples as how things happen here, at least in the US, and I'm hoping it's the same across the world over a period of time. And also a very interesting concept of digital twin. At Verizon Media, I had this fantastic opportunity towards the end to work with a very large team to start to build a digital twin of a cell tower. And now, why is it more relevant? Why is Hyperledger more relevant in a context of digital twin where there is more AI and then so on? So I'll be reflecting on those things. And I don't know the format if I'll be taking questions. Don't hesitate, just start to post questions. I'll just look at and then you guys can ask questions too, I believe. Arvind, I'm not sure what the format is, but I enjoy having being interactive. And I'm also available. You can just reach out to me at a later time. Let me start to share my slides. Slides are nothing but index, but start to pay attention to the stories that I'm starting to share in very simple language. And this is not a technology talk at all. I'm not here to actually explain to you experts about how Hyperledger works and those fantastic capabilities, but I'll be reflecting on the view primarily from business perspective and how next generation application would actually start to use Hyperledger and Hyperledger Fabric primarily as a framework for trust. And interestingly, just to cite some examples, in the US, many conversations, the moment I actually say blockchain, it just goes straight to cryptocurrency. And we want to change that. It's just an application. It's one application. And we'll start to discuss some commercial applications too. So let me start to share my screen. I'll run through the slides, and then I'll hope if somebody can confirm if you're able to see my slides, that would be fantastic.
Yes, we can see it.
Yes.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So, interesting. Fiducia indirectly is actually tied to blockchain. I'll tell you why. As I started to think about what I aspire to do as part of a new journey, there are many verticals I could have actually gone and then started to work on. And with all the experience that I had in telco was a very natural choice, but I was looking for purpose in life. And AgTech is such an area where the innovation is not touched so much. And I want to be part of that journey where I start to do my best, bring my part, innovation towards AgTech, bring in the digital transformation, bring in those next generation applications for efficiency. Fiducia is trust. Fiducia is how it's pronounced in Latin. And that's trust. AI is artificial intelligence. And a combination of these two, I strongly believe, would be the platform or fabric to continue to build next generation applications. And the journey that we embarked on is to build globally connected, trusted communities. It's a very powerful statement. And I envision and I see blockchain, Hyperledger Fabric in this context, and other blockchain protocols and implementations, which would really start to play a very, very big part. Because we all talk about frameworks for security, frameworks for scale, framework for AI. And I'm starting to see blockchain as framework for trust. And the intent of having a platform as a strategy for any company, small or large, is to identify a lot of horizontal capabilities that are very common across any vertical, and then operationalize it, and then start to focus on building those applications. And technology is fantastic. Hyperledger, it's so exciting. It's so powerful too. I'll tell you why. I mean it when I say that, and you'll start to see those reflections. How I start to use, how I start to view, how it'll start to tell those stories. But the intent is decentralization is natural, both in AI, we see that in blockchain as well, and it's going to continue to evolve. Decentralization of infrastructure is inevitable. I see that happening left, right, and center. I myself was very deeply engaged in edge compute, where it was all about decentralization. So taking these ingredients into account, starting to orchestrate a platform, which I'll start to discuss a little bit about, where blockchain capability is very important, and AI capability is super important too. And have the habit of sharing a very high-level view of how I've attempted things in the past. I've orchestrated a cloud AI strategy called Orion. There are a lot of fingerprints out there in the web. And then edge compute, Leo. And then now, as my own personal journey, Fiducia AI platform, primarily the intent is to bring in those ingredients that are really required to start to build those next generation applications. And what do I mean when I say next generation application? An application primarily in a decentralized ecosystem. There's a need for decentralization both for AI and then other technologies too, including blockchain. Start to reflect on that. But most importantly, try to simplify these stories, because we don't want to make things so complex that even barrier to think about these technologies become hard. And this is where I personally am part of an AI consortium called Neurosystem, where I attempt to do that. And I'm starting to learn Hyperledger and Hyperledger Fabric. That way I can actually start to simplify stories and then see how we can make this real for the community. On the left to this platform, who are the actors? There could be IoT sensors, could be a packing house where they're actually packing produce, farmers in the fields, sensors from the fields, and many apps and so on. So these are data sources that can actually get into the platform. I envision configurable data source as one of the very differentiating capabilities that we all have to start to look at, because where is this record going to rest? In the past, it used to be one database. Now the options are plenty. And depending upon the data source, you might prefer to actually write it to only the Hadoop repository or massive data stores, or leave fingerprints on a private blockchain. And depending upon the need and the value that we would like to bring in, we might also aspire to write those fingerprints to public blockchain too. But also want to reflect on one very important thing, which is not very well understood, including myself. I would like to do AI on blockchain. That's practically just impossible. And we all know the reasons why. And in simple terms, I mean, Ledger is awesome, fantastic. It brings in a fascinating concept of immutability, where a third party at any point in time can request authorization to add a peer. Such a powerful capability, unheard of in the entire history, right? So that's how we have to start to look at, and then start to socialize these platforms as framework for trust. What exactly does it mean when I say framework for trust? When a record comes in, no doubt it is going into Hadoop repository. It's a long record with image. Do you think I can save that on the blockchain? No. Get the fingerprint out and then just write it there. And just in case in the future, if people start to challenge, you have that power to explain, no, you know what? This is real, this is true, this is not edited or altered from when it was actually returned to the repository, and this is how and this is why. These are the stories we want to share. And at the bottom, AI, it's inevitable. AI would become part of almost every ecosystem and application. We see that. I'll tell you my own habit, right? When I go watch television today, I press much fewer buttons. It's fascinating to see how the app understands me much better than I do about myself in few cases, because I start to see those recommendations. And we'll see those impressions across. And today, I'm going to tell stories about how commercial applications can be deployed on a framework or a platform as what we are seeing right now. Yeah, makes sense? So let me pause. Let me do a pulse check. Arun, I'm not sure if there's an opportunity for folks to ask questions while we talk, but
yes. So people can unmute themselves and ask questions. We also have a few questions on chat channel.
Sure, I'll start to.
We can take questions if you want. So.
Ideally, I prefer taking questions. I'll scan through, but see, this is where I don't want folks to feel shy. We are all learning together, right? And these opportunities, it's just a blessing to be part of a consortium like Hyperledger Fabric. I myself registered. I'm starting to learn from all of you, right? And it's perfectly all right to challenge. It's perfectly all right to ask questions, learn more. Let me skim through some of these questions, and then I'll give a summarized answer for many of these questions too. But while I'm doing this, you can go ahead and then ask those questions as well, please.
So, Dinesh, I had a question. So, how are we using digital twin here? And which sector?
Definitely, and there's a slide, and I'll actually walk you through that. That's a second use case for today. I'll definitely address that topic, please, in short order.
Okay.
When Rajesh here, I mean, in terms of the quality aspects, right? So any documents and all of that. So how do you manage and do
that? Let me repeat the question just to be sure that I got this right. So in terms of quality of the records, information being returned to blockchain, how do we manage, or can you elaborate a bit more, please?
Suppose there's a farmer's produce, right? And you're validating, sorry, you're not able to hear.
Oh.
Okay, is it clear now?
Yeah, no, I got the point. I'll be very happy to address that. And this is where, right? So assertion, I can tell a story, but I want that story to be validated too. And you can write contracts, you can deploy it, and then you can make it work too. But in supply chain, interestingly, for some of the characteristics, like say, for example, I'm an organic farmer. I'll give you a concrete example. Global Gap is a third-party verifier. If I'm a farmer, if I say I have an organic farm, ideally, I prefer getting that certified to the third party. And in this case, that could be Global Gap. And I get an ID. And it becomes important when they register their farm as part of this traceability solution, have all these information available. And then we can actually today at Fiducia, we make an API call to actually do a global gap validation and then say, yeah, this farmer grows organic produce and it is certified for only these three produce, not just for the just organic in general, but produce. That's a response that you get back. And then those things are actually returned to the platform. That way you can actually do a cross-check even after the farmer asserts onto the platform and so on. And this is where we want to start to depend on the sensing capability, right? Which is less manipulative, meaning GPS coordinates, just pick it up and then write it. Sensors, which actually reflect temperature, pick it up and write it. And these are, I'm sure there'll be gaps. We'll all have to learn to bridge those gaps and then ensure that the stories that are actually told are verifiable in some way, form, or fashion. Yeah, and definitely, I'm sure there was a question on digital twin. I'll be touching upon the digital twin aspect as well. Yeah. Oh, well, this is an interesting slide, and this is real. This is from the FDA side. Thanks to FDA for sharing this information too. 48 million people in the US, they fall sick, primarily because, not just because of the produce that you're looking at, not the agricultural, dairy, cattle, and then so on, right? And it's really not a good thing. Can we get that 48 million to zero? No. We would like to bring those numbers down. This is where some of the examples that I'm starting to give will start to resonate very well. Sustainability, I'll give a few examples too. But on this slide, when you look at it, it's a very, very broad ecosystem, farm to the consumer. The only few of them are reflected here, by the way. From the farm, it gets transported to the packing house. From the packing house, it goes to the retail store, and then it comes to our hand. At least in the US, I don't believe I have actually seen a produce, a fruit, right, or a vegetable without a label. I really don't recollect at all. Now, the label is dead today. We want to bring life to that label. What does it mean? Hey, Ganesh, what are you talking? The label has something printed on it. I really can't decipher what is written. It's just the name of the company and then some barcode there. It really requires those retail equipment to start to understand the cryptographic insight behind what's there on the label. And and this is where we want to simplify solutions. That way it becomes practical for us to use. Just imagine there is a QR code, which we are all familiar across the globe today. I mean, especially through pandemic, we learned. And now we scan more QR codes than before pandemic, and we know what it is and what it means. The moment you actually scan, you start to know about the farm, right? You start to know about the farmer too. You start to know what they are approved to grow, when it was harvested, where it was packed, and how long did it take to really get into the retail store. Here I am, I'm starting to consume this. And they're just through a scan. And this QR code scan is fascinating. I'll tell you why. You don't need an app. One of the biggest challenges that we have to proliferate any good capability, technology feature is adoption of app. There's a lot of friction. You have to work through the parties that I would I'm hesitant to name, and then get those apps deployed. And all this is great. This is good. But there's a lot of friction. It slows down. Just imagine, almost all phones today are QR code enabled. You can take the phone, use the camera, scan the QR code. Suddenly you go to the website and then start to see all this information. Right? And now let's go back and then start to think, where does Hyperledger Fabric play a role? Why should I, as a customer, start to believe what I'm looking at? And I don't want to know more about blockchain because we are technologists. We understand blockchain very well, right? So this is where it's an evolution that we all will actually start to live through, where it will start to be socialized that, yes, this capability is powered by blockchain through assertions and through verifications. And this information that you're actually starting to see has a lot of meaning and value. Please trust it. And we are in our very, very early stage. And this is a voice beyond technology, right? And it's not just about technology too. Technology adoption in itself, it's a very long chain. And we have to start to build stories where it is well received and it takes off. And that's going to happen, inevitable, at this point in time. Okay? Make sense for many of you? Yeah. The same slide, just a big divide, right? A concrete wall. And I'll tell you what I aspire to see. One of the very hardworking people are the farmer. And I'll tell you my state of mind, which I'm very open to share. Right? When I post something on LinkedIn, which I believe, oh my God, this is something very important that I would like to share to the community, I see how people are reacting. Look at this farmer who's been working so hard across the globe, anywhere, right? He was never, there's no good gesture from the consumer. And many times, it's not that the consumer don't want to. I want to appreciate when those apples taste very good. There's no medium. And this is where, when you go back and then start to look at some of the things that I'm saying, and these are fabrics or capabilities that we would actually start to build. And we can, and this is where connecting right, globally distributed community based on a trust platform. Look how powerful blockchain is going to be over a period of time. And I want to be very true too. It's very, very early, but blockchain is still not looked upon as a framework for trust. And we, on the call, people like us, have to start to give a shape beyond technology. And I'm very confident that would happen in short order. This is a very interesting slide. Up above is today, at least in the US, I can tell you. It is wrong if I say, oh, technology, you can't find advanced technology in agriculture. That's really not true. It is just that it's astronomically expensive. And I would like to share my own story, how I got so attached to AgTech, and then how I started to focus on bringing technology and then solutions to AgTech. I visited a packing house, and I'm saying that's a blessing for me. When I visited a packing house, the first thing that it was visible, I was able to notice was the blueberries are actually going, and computer vision is applied. And they are binned based on computer vision. And I was sitting in those big buildings, and then I was doing AI for industrial automation. I'm saying in these packing house, it's been there for many years. Edge compute, we talk about edge compute right now. There is edge compute. It's just that it's not seamlessly connected to the cloud. So up on top, there are many of these capabilities that we're discussing. It's in bits and pieces. We don't want to transform. It's very, very difficult to change supply chain. And we don't want to attempt to do that. We want to create a layer through digital triggers to start to stitch these stories and make it meaningful. And now I'll tell you a very interesting sustainability story, at least in the US. And this is primarily around wastage. There is news about some issue to lettuce. That's about it. The entire United States. It's an exaggeration, though. We just dump it. That's about it. Because we are concerned, we are afraid. Now, let's fast forward a few months, few years from now. There are QR codes. When there is news, it becomes a natural habit to actually scan. And you will see a green or a voice telling you that, you know what, you can consume this because this is not from the region where there is infection that's actually going on. Okay. And so these are stories that would actually start to evolve over a period of time. And what exactly are we solving? It's wastage is stopped just like that. Are we there yet? This is where we have to roll up our sleeves, not just from the technology perspective. Also start to explain why, because as a consumer, as a technologist, I understand blockchain. As a consumer, I don't even want to understand what blockchain is. But I want my applications to use blockchain because I want to trust information that is being written on the blockchain. Okay? So at the bottom is an effort from Fiducia where we want to have digital triggers right into the platform. And then we can actually start to stitch these stories together, and simple QR code scan. Maybe not everything is interesting and important for us. Those important things about a produce that we would like to know. It could be 5 lines. It could be a small video. Can be shared. But I don't want to... Sorry, go ahead, please.
Yeah, hello, Ganesh. So actually, there are some interesting questions. Like Amul too has developed similar software non-blockchain based. Why would they opt for blockchain based ecosystem backed with AI? And I have also one question. Like I understand the blockchain use case here, but what is the role of AI in terms of this?
Yeah.
platform?
No, definitely, definitely. Let me address the blockchain part. Why do we have to use blockchain here, right? And it's very, very simple. The answer is simple. You can use a database to actually do that. But the interesting scenario that we would have to pay attention to is, it is not within one corporation. We have all the way from farmer telling a story to a retailer. There are 10 different parties, right? What is the use of blockchain? We are making a bold statement saying that even if it's a private blockchain, we are writing this on private blockchain. It's nothing but I can be audited at any point in time, whether we know it or not. That's what we are actually saying to the world when we say we are writing it on blockchain. And people couldn't actually very boldly say that before because of the immutability characteristics, one of the very important characteristics that blockchain offers today. And I'll tell you an interesting story. This is how I start to socialize why it is powerful. At a given point in time, Kamlesh is a part of one of these packing house. He would actually say, you know what, the whole infrastructure is owned by you. I want to put my own peer. And I'm part of your ecosystem, and I really want, and I should honor that. I should give him a blueprint to very easily build a peer. I should give him those credentials. That way he can actually become part of our network. And these are stories today, and that's the future. That's the future, right? So just saying writing onto the blockchain means many things. Do we really ping every record every second, go back and see if it is written properly? No, it's just like audit in accounts. And it's a cultural shift. It will take some time, but people will start to have peace of mind when they start to realize it's written on X blockchain, Y blockchain. Oh, you know what? There are other people who have peers in this blockchain. We can actually start to trust this blockchain and so on. We are all learning. So a lot of these things that I'm saying is primarily based on reflection of few months of learning, right? So,
yeah. So thank you, Ganesh. I think there are many such questions you can address in the chat. We need to actually for the next speaker, and we have a networking section in the end of the session. We can want to learn more from you.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I want to be respectful of time too. I just want to see how many minutes I have. Is it okay to go for 5 more minutes? Is that okay?
Yeah. 5 minutes more is okay.
5 minutes, and then I'll again. So my apologies if I'm going slightly over. Sorry about that, and I'll try to keep brief. And then, the folks on the call, do not hesitate. I mean, accessible for technical questions. You can reach me on LinkedIn, and I'll be very happy to address those questions to you. So I know somebody in the call asked me, okay, what's this digital twin? Where is AI used and why? Right. So this is agriculture research on the left. In the US, if farm owners have hundreds of acres, they don't suddenly go and then start to plant apples and then start to see it grow. What they do is very carefully, in a very small lot, which could be 5 acres or 10 acres, they might grow 10 plants of that specific variety that they would like to grow after 2 years or 3 years. And they very carefully monitor the plant, all the characteristics, moisture, weather, temperature, how it is growing, pruning, tasting. And then after 2 or 3 harvests, finally they decide, you know what, we can't grow this because commercially this is not viable. And oh no, we can grow this because we have seen it's tasted well. It doesn't require a lot of water. Commercially, it is viable. And then they go and then scale it to 25 acres. Today, a lot of these agricultural research that's actually happening is not digitized. It's maintained on spreadsheets and so on. One, we would like to actually digitize this. Since this is research, we would like to leave fingerprints on the blockchain platform, right, of many of these records, either individually or in batch mode. And that's the power of blockchain. And AI, that's such a fascinating thing. So as I mentioned, we built digital twin for cell towers. What did we do? From latency of 2 days, we brought it down not only to now, but we can also start to forecast how consumer experience could be for the next 6 hours. And with plants, playing with a lot of these features, you can even predict and forecast primarily see how these plants would actually grow based on these variations, and then start to increase water, decrease water, and prune and things like that, right? So it's a learning. It's a very, very new area, and this is how bringing AI and then trying to disrupt. There is digital transformation. There is trust, which is very required. AI would actually help us push ag tech to that next level, where we actually start to better understand the produce, even before we actually start to scale. Digital twin is nothing but a digital representation of whatever that is. And in this case, it is plant. We did cell towers. It really worked. And I'm hoping the plants would actually work too. Just to reflect on my conversation, I was talking to one of the very senior people in one of the universities here, who's head of research, and it really resonated well with individuals who are very, very accomplished too. So I think there's a lot we can continue, but I sincerely thank you all. Thank you all, and my sincere apologies if I have not answered your questions, but I'm accessible. Please, reach out.
Thank you. And you can address the question in the chat, and we are available in the networking system too. So yeah, it's a great presentation, and now I'd like to invite Deepak Chhena, and he is the Chief Product Officer at CoinEarth. And yeah, over to you, Deepak.
Hey, Kamlesh, thank you. This is Deep Chhena, by the way.
Yeah, sorry.
My screen. No problem. I get this a lot, so that's fine. Okay. I hope you guys can see my screen.
Yeah, we can see. Supply chain.
Okay, so a brief introduction in the interest of time. So my name is Deep Chhena. I'm Chief Product Officer at CoinEarth. CoinEarth, we are a startup. We were founded in 2018. It's close to 3 years now. So more than 3 years, in fact. So and MarketSend is our one of the flagship product. We are basically working in a building blockchain solutions for enterprises. That's the area that we are actually focused on to. And MarketSend is one of our key flagship product, and that's mainly targeted for supply chains. Right? We have another product which is a different division, but yeah, right now. Since the context is about supply chains and Hyperledger, MarketSend is a product that was built on Hyperledger for supply chains, right? So let's jump onto the problem statement that we are trying to address. Okay, so since 2018, when we are talking to a lot of supply chain divisions, especially in India, we work very closely with one of the few key big supply chain enterprises in India. Okay, so there are a lot of problems that we came across that they are facing currently. That's starting from very basic human errors that could cause costly mistakes, right? Maybe error in the paperwork or any kind of if these things not majority are digitized, right? It could lead to a lot of issues. Starting from there until the complicated problems like enforcement of SLA, dispute resolutions, the amount of time and resources spent on this are actually expensive a lot, right? There's a spectrum of issues that we have came across, and we have a special slide for that. So I just wanted to skip through all those details. But at the end of the day, what we realized is the fundamental problem for all these kind of issues is data silos. Right, that is one conclusion we are confidently came into after understanding their problems, after talking to them, and getting to see what is happening on the floor. Right, so data silos is a fundamental problem in supply chains, for many of these kind of issues. So yeah, so that's where we actually realized, okay, we need one source of truth across organizations in supply chain. That is a fundamental. So until we have a one source of truth, there's always kind of different interpretations and different kind of copies of the same data is maintained by a different network partners, and so as can result in disputes and errors. Right. So Yeah, now the challenge, right? What is the challenge now? So we need to bridge silos. And by the way, this is not a newly identified problem that we are not saying that we have kind of found this problem ourselves, right? This is in fact the well-known problem in supply chains, and through industry, through time, there are a lot of attempts to solve this, right? Whether it be EDI is one of the matured, closer solution to address these silos. And they could be like, if you now I've seen there are certain supply chains which are little mature where they have API based integrations and all that. In fact, from my personal experience, I worked for Intel around 7.5 years, and I'm into factory automation. I personally worked with, integrating multiple warehouse data to bring in, traceability into the platform, right? So, but yeah, so bridging silos is a fundamental problem. So now, can we do it much efficiently using blockchain? Is the way we, kind of try to address this in a different way, right? Using the latest technology, right? So that's where we built a product, Markets End. It's a platform for multi-party B2B collaboration that prevents data silos. Now, we made it very simple. It's a framework. It's a platform, right? Now, the whole idea is to bring in a platform where these multiple parties in the network can collaborate with each other. So now what can they do by doing this, right? There's like, a lot of things that they can do, which I'll come to, in next slide. Okay, fundamentally, this is built upon a blockchain, which is basically Hyperledger. Okay, so it enables on-demand creation of business groups. Okay, so we made it very simple. Okay, it's a product ready to use right now. I can, give you a sneak peek into our product, which is deployed and live. So as simple as how you could create a WhatsApp group. I mean, maybe not that simple, but yeah, in between, like, you don't need to do anything technical, right? You just go to the UI, say create group, give you, details like, cloud information and everything. We have a fully automated, deployment framework where it will deploy a business network for you. So that's what you could do. So now you have a business group, a digital ecosystem for cross enterprise collaborations, right? That's the fundamental framework we have created using Markets End. Okay. So how, what Markets End enables, like on the left side, what you could see how our user experience would look like. Okay, you can create secure private B2B groups on demand, right? Groups can consist of enterprises, SMEs, banks, and BFCs, and supply chain, maybe delivery side partners or supply partners, vendors. It could be any combination of in supply chain, right? You don't need to have an entire supply chain come onto the network. You could have a subset of your business division brought into the network for a different kind of value propositions and use cases. Okay, so now, so now you can create multiple groups to honor data privacy. For the people who are having technical background, this is nothing but Hyperledger channels. Now you have a network. Everybody is connected with their nodes. You could create multiple channels in this network so that you could operate. Maybe you have a supplier network and dealers network, and maybe contract manufacturers network. And how do you gonna utilize this framework based on your requirement, right? This is left to use case. When we talk to customers, that is where we're gonna have a work closely with them to understand how we can, kind of architect their groups, right, to have a better, results, right? Okay, so now there's a pre-built workflows onto the platform. Okay, so where you can, digitize your business processes. Okay, I'm gonna show you, what are the kind of workflows that we already pre-built into the platform. We have, kind of learned enough in last 3 years to understand what are the common, aspects of all supply chains and what is the delta. We try to make it in such a way these workflows are customizable, right? So when somebody comes onto the platform, they can choose what kind of workflows they wanted to operate on and how they can customize these as well. Okay, so little bit technical, overview of what happening here, right? So on one side, we have a private groups on Markets End, okay, which is built on Hyperledger. Okay, so it's in choosing Hyperledger is one of the best decisions we have made in the past. I remember in 2017, when we are doing our homework, there's a lot of choices. We explored with along with Hyperledger, Ethereum and Ethereum private chain, I mean, and R3 Corda and few other, right? Because at that time it's new and we are also kind of learning, and we kind of have all our requirements stick with Hyperledger, and we made that decision, and we are very happy that we made that decision today. Okay, so because it's working very well for us on when it went live, so we have seen zero issues in maintaining that. Okay, so one side is on-demand permission blockchains. Okay, so we also have a proprietary bridge, okay, built and connects to public blockchains. And right now the proprietary bridge is connected to Tezos public blockchain and Ethereum public blockchain, right? So I mean, there's more to it why we did it. Okay, so this is a little bit futuristic, where we thought, okay, when these networks interact with each other, so essentially what they could create is they could create assets, okay, digital assets, right? They hold value. And we thought, okay, there is a way getting them in as part of, create an enterprise NFTs as assets on a public blockchain, right? So this is a little bit futuristic. We have a existing customer who is using it. This is in Korea, but yeah, where you could think of a bringing DeFi to supply chain. So that's where our vision is towards, right? And it is hosted on cloud. Right now we are supported on both AWS and Oracle. And on need basis, we could, kind of make it compatible with other cloud providers as well. Okay. So we are started with AWS, and based on the customer need, we have, enabled on Oracle as well. And also we have API integrations. So the thing is, we are not saying it will replace your ERPs, right? Whatever the businesses they are doing, they continue to do so. We cannot, change their processes. So that's where we have built in, API integrations with major ERPs over there. So we have a Tally connector, Oracle ERP connector, SAP ERP connectors, and few other. When based on the need, we're gonna customize this ERP, integrations, or we have a standalone tools which are, kind of self-use, and especially Tally, if it comes, it's like more standardized. The amount of customization within Tally is very less compared to other ERP providers. So it is like, self-use tool where you could install it, markets and connector on your Tally system, and, start to push data. So you don't need to come to our platform, though we have a UI and everything, but you can still operate on whatever fashion you are doing, and the things are coordinated. So when somebody creates a purchase invoice, and it will land up as a sales invoice in your Tally, and you update something, and it will go back and update into your partners, systems. Okay, so that's the. Okay, so now, like I said, now you have this framework, right? So you can create a digital ecosystem using that. And based on the kind of industry you're talking about, based on the kind of problem statements you have, this digital ecosystem can become, brought in between multiple parties in the ecosystem. These are few examples where, who are the kind of a key, stakeholders in the network. So, and I can show you real examples what we have been using, and I can also show you what are the key parties in this network. So we have seen our product being used for different kind of use cases, but to generalize, to simplify. Okay, so there are around 5 to 6 deployments already. Not every use case is same. Okay, even the solution is same, but the kind of the way the value proposition they see is completely different. Okay, but we try to theme them into 3 different categories based on our experience. First thing is digital product passports, where it will create it's kind of a traceability, right? It creates full end-to-end traceability in a digital and trusted manner, right? During the supply chain, during the life cycle of any product, there'll be multiple parties in the supply chain could be writing, or updating that information on a product. So that product passport can be preserved and shared to end consumer also to show the proof of authenticity of a product, right? And then supply chain management. That's where we started our journey. So we could, automate a lot of supply chain operations, and bring in process automation between parties in the supply chain. In the fact that we are bringing on a shared ledger, and we have a single source of truth, and we can automate, and you don't need to have a separate reconciliation. This auto reconciled, you can automate the SLAs as well. So I will show you how we have automated our SLAs on our platform So people can customize these SLAs. That example, we literally took the PDF document that, people will have the SLAs, terms and agreement, right? And convert it into a digital version, which can be auto-enforced in one of our supply chain solutions. Okay. And the third is supply chain finance. So now you have a digital copies of these assets, business documents, whether it be invoice, orders, or shipments, or inventory. Everything is digitized and trustable, because this is the information flowing from multiple parties in the network, not from one party, right? So you could, bring in a bank or NBFC financing partner, and you can share these assets as a trustworthy assets to them. Okay, so the risk for the financier is reduced, right? So that's one. So we have one of the deployment where it is used as a supply chain finance. So most commonly what we have seen is like, it could be used in these two combinations, or a standalone solution for supply chain finance or supply chain management. So I'll try to keep it brief, 3 slides with each, value proposition kind of a theme that I'm talking about. But these are, big enough. Features are surrounding this kind of, value propositions in our product, take, a significant amount of time to, share full details, right? First is digital, product passport. Okay. So the idea is very simple, right? 2 times that we have seen is, consumers are more interested in, products that are like, providing a proof of, authenticity, right? So where this digital product passport will, enable you to, create digitally signed, timestamped, and history of the product, right? Now you have that. You could provide within the network partners, or, you can provide it to the end consumer also, this information. Okay. So it can be read and written by multiple parties. That's where it brings in more trust, right? It's not one central party who's writing this information and presenting to you. It was written by multiple parties in the ecosystem, right? Yeah. And for supply chain management, it will reduce risks, delays, and cost within built-in auditability. On the left side is what you see in the real application, where you could see the full audit of an asset. It's like, if you take an order from its beginning, from creation until the completion of the order. Sometimes these orders are like long-term contracts. They may span across year or 6 months also. So they may give an order for for next 6 months, I want this much material, and then they may ask for delivery requests. So you can see the full audit of such orders, and what happened, and kind of when it was happened, what was the agreed terms, and what was the actual execution happened. Okay. So now, so you can document verification is real time and visibility. Like, there is nothing, everything is digitized. You don't need to cross verify with your original terms and conditions, and you can automate the process enforcement and compliance. Like, let's say the shipment has to be, arrived after, 2 days of, delivery request, and it arrived within 2 days of delivery request, and it have arrived after 2 days. And then you can write terms and conditions such that there'll be a penalty for supplier or logistics provider based on the kind of network you're building, right? So, and supply chain finance, where currently we have an invoice financing solution, right? But it could get into more interesting, where it will go to multi-tier financing as well, deep tier financing. Okay, so there are different levels of financing that can be built once your assets are digitized. So we're working with one of the major banks in India to build a deep tier financing solution. It's not that your first tier suppliers would be needing a financing, but you want to enable your suppliers also be financed, such that your whole ecosystem, your supply network is secured, right? You don't want your supplier to be stuck on payment, and such that your supply is actually affected. Okay, so this is a little bit sneak peek into our product, how it looks like. Okay, on real time. We have 2 more minutes. I'll try to take it to UI also, and to show you how this actually executed. Okay, so on the left side is where you see transactions or workflows. Right, these are the typical workflows that any supply chain would have, like orders, shipments, invoices, quality checks, product returns, delivery requests, RFQs, credit note, debit notes, and inventory update. And another class is invoice financing. And another is digital assets, where you could see your material passports. That's where like your raw material itself, whole genealogy is maintained here, how this kind of whole finished good has been manufactured, right? From which raw material, how much quantity has been taken and and consumed into this particular finished good. So this whole genealogy can be maintained in this material passport, and this material passport is interlinked with your transactions in such a way that when you're creating a shipment, you would essentially create inventory. Okay, when you're creating in that inventory, you essentially can provide this information, how this finished good has been created. Okay, so and then there is a class of use cases where we have built vehicle passport, and how this information from telematics and service level data can sit on this vehicle passport, and different partners like insurance partners and all can tap into this data and offer better products for end consumer. Okay, and we have an organization passport where like whole organization level data will be shown to different network partners by pulling information from different open source or public resources. Okay, so and there are a few other like you can manage your groups, settings, everything through UI. Okay, so a typical asset on our platform looks like this. Okay, there's an overview when it is created, and everything is interlinked. It will be interlinked to its order, and it will be interlinked to its delivery request, and it will be interlinked to shipment, and it depends, right? If it is a quality check can be interlinked to only order and shipment. Okay, so and then you have different parties, and you have an audit, complete audit, and you have a smart contracts rules. What are the kind of terms and conditions that are applied on this particular asset, and those will be enforced automatically when this particular asset travels to journey, when it is created, when it is kind of, if it is invoice, it has a different states. So it will be like created, accepted, paid, and or rejected. Depends on the kind of workflow. So this is I try to speed it up because we have very 20 minutes time, so I just don't want to take more time on this. Okay, so here are a few partners that we have partnered with few major enterprises for different kind of partnerships. We have like with Tezos, we got a grant for we migrating our proprietary bridge from Ethereum to Tezos, right? So we have partnered with AWS, where our entire stack will runs on AWS. So we are integrated with RxIL as a trades platform, where invoice financing requests from our platform will flow into RxIL. And there are few major customers of us. Aditya Birla Hindalco is one of the major customer.
Yep.
Is there a question?
Sorry. Not sorry to interrupt you, Deep. So maybe you'll go more into networking break session, and we will go to next speaker for now.
Okay, so you want me to stop here?
Yeah, if you can wrap up, or we'll go to
I'm wrapping up in a minute. Okay, I'll wrap up in a minute. Yeah, I know it's over 20 minutes, so I'll definitely do that. Okay, so there are a few customers. You can go to our website to know more, of course. Okay, and so here is the team who we are. Okay, you can just get this information as well on the okay. So I think I'll just take a pause here. This information is anyway available in open source, public open source, so you can just check that. So I just wanted to take you through our product for a minute and just stop there. Okay, so this is how the product looks like. It's ready to use platform, completely built on Hyperledger. Okay, so whatever you have seen on the slides is what you could see here. So you could have orders, and shipments and everything process, and you can have a kind of a network. These are the kind of organizations who are part of the network, and I logged in as one of the organizations here, right? And as a group admin, they can manage the organizations by inviting more organizations network into this particular group. Like example, in this case, there are 56 organizations in this network, right? So that's it. I just want to take any questions if there are any, and stop presenting. Okay.
Maybe because of time, we will take questions maybe in the networking break event, and
Sure.
we are looking forward to having you in the networking break. And
Sure. Sure.
and thanks, Deep. That was insight into. It's a new concept for us, connecting the word that we already know, creating groups, and then taking into
Mhm.
something much more complex to understand on the blockchain side of things, and making it easy for doing business, right? So that's an interesting concept, and we all got something new to learn today. And thank you very much. Up next, we have Arvind, VP of Blockchain Practice and Products at IDC Inc. And we would like Arvind to take over from here.
Yeah, so hope I'm audible.
Yes, Arvind, you're audible.
Yeah. So first of all, congratulations, Arun and Kamlesh, for Hyperledger India chapter getting into its third anniversary. And thanks for the invite. So, I'll quickly share the screen and kickstart. Okay. So, okay. So coming to ideas, we are Michigan-based company established in 1996. We are a Hyperledger certified service provider, and I'm heading all the blockchain practice and products as vice president. And Trust Flow is our flagship product for supply chain. Transforming supply chain with blockchain. So what we are, I think most of you already gave like little context on how blockchain can be leveraged. So even in ideas, we always talk about ABCDs: AI, blockchain, cloud, and digital twin. And these are some of the skill set and the teams, different practices under ideas, which are working in sync. And if you look at the age-old challenge is to have right product at right place at right time. And as Deep was mentioning, it is all functional silos. Today's applications and everything is around functional silos. And someone was asking if Amul could create something on centralized, what is the need for going with blockchain? So the point is, all the stakeholders in that supply chain should wait till Amul does something, and it is an operational burden or the infrastructure cost, everything is on that centralized player Amul. Rather, if you take blockchain, the infrastructure costs gets distributed and the trust also gets distributed. So of course, today, if you take supply chain, they are increasingly becoming global. And we know we are living in a world of VUCA, volatility, complexity, ambiguity, uncertainty. And today, the supplier network or distributor network, whatever network you take, you have some trusted parties with whom you are doing business. And it takes a lot of time and effort and trust to be built for some player to get into the ecosystem. But even though you are a small organization with who is genuine and who is able to give good quality service, you have a level playing field in blockchain, because the trust is not coming from your size of the organization, or the trust is not coming from your legacy or reputation. Rather, the trust is coming on the service which you are giving. So I think in that context, centralized players driving centralized applications for ecosystems is not a sustainable way of doing it. And if you carefully observe today, if you look at a typical ERP-enabled supply chain with, say, extranet application, EDI and all, see, EDI enables data sharing. It doesn't enable shared data which can be trusted by everyone. So basically, if you look today's kind of technology and business concerns in supply chain, each stakeholder is maintaining their own copy of interactions and transactions in their respective ledgers. And extranet EDI is very tough. As the size of the network grows, the exponential number of connections you need to get is also grows exponentially. So I think in that context, the beauty of blockchain is one second. Yeah. Instead of each stakeholder maintaining their own copy of ledger, you have a shared ledger which is in sync with all the stakeholders. So you have a single version of truth there. And coming to the challenges which TrustFlow is trying to address is the lack of visibility. I mean, end-to-end track and trace, some common legacy use case for blockchain. And second, poor response times, where users across organizations are managing the orders, and there is a lot of follow-ups and everything which goes into it, and complex order management. And of course, purchase order, shipping bill, goods receipt note, invoice processing, invoice factoring, whatever you take, at the end of the day, it is all the workflows which brings the events and the data points which should be shared across. And I think in that context, today's extranet applications and EDIs are little inflexible. And of course, today the supply chains are increasingly becoming, supporting diverse channels, right? Be it direct to customer channel or traditional distributor channel. So each channel has different expectations and different workflows and different frequency with which you need to serve. So I think in that context, today's ERPs and EDIs doesn't have, EDIs enable data sharing, but the business logic embedded into that sharing is something which is missing, and which can be driven through smart contract by codifying the service level agreements and all. And of course, counterfeiting, another traditional challenge which people can address with blockchain, because every stakeholder can actually have the provenance. So these are some of the challenges which we are trying to address with TrustFlow, because blockchain being a shared ledger. So what ERP did, at least at IDS, we see this, what ERP did to enterprises, blockchain would do to ecosystems. And that is where we are trying to create a interoperable supply chain consortium. So to give you a quick overview, this is what we are working on, where first of all, third-party onboarding. See, basically, if we are talking about sustainability as one of the key thing, today ESG, environmental, social, and governance. So there are n number of certifications, n number of data points. Each organization should share again and again to all the stakeholders whenever they get onboarded and whenever they want to give service. So one layer on which we are closely working with a couple of leaders in ESG space is the third-party exchange, data exchange. Okay, where all the stakeholders can have, can onboard themselves onto the platform. And the second layer, where we are working is, all these stakeholders, once onboarded, can align their cross-organizational workflows, and they can have real-time visibility of what is happening on the network. To what level? Every stakeholder in the network can have visibility to the transaction history, transaction documents, and of course, they can do end-to-end track and trace of the products or produce at pallet level, at batch level, and at unit, saleable unit level. And one more thing, what we are trying to achieve also is, whatever data we get from this blockchain network is something which we can trust. And whatever analytics, now people are talking about AI and blockchain interface, right? Whatever data I get from blockchain, if I can trust it, and if it is really coming from the near real-time thing, obviously I can analyze the data, and we can actually give some analytics on some root cause analysis, where the delays are happening and where is the friction, and then optimize it so that the whole supply chain becomes more sustainable, as well as the operational efficiency can be improved, and back and forth coordinations can be minimized, and audit becomes pretty much straightforward, because everything is chronologically available. So in this context, these are the layers of services, and this is the services stack where we bring the connectedness with all the business stakeholders, and then some intelligence on top of the data which is there. And of course, we are trying to, most of our workflows are like low code, no code kind of thing, where you can quickly configure them during the setup. And of course, you can improve your operations, as well as you can align your cross-organizational workflows. And coming back, so what we are trying to achieve is, of course, we are leveraging Hyperledger Fabric here, where each stakeholders or all the stakeholders can define the channels in which they interact with each other. And we have channel all, where multiple stakeholders, all the stakeholders can have some common data which they want to see or they want to look at. But of course, we are leveraging private data collection concept of Hyperledger Fabric as well, so that all the business data or documents are still secured, and selective disclosure of data is always possible. And the end consumer. So I think this is a long term thing, because whenever we spoke to a couple of people in automobile industry, pharma, and oil and gas, these are some of the industry players with whom we are working. The biggest challenge is end-to-end ecosystem, end-to-end track and trace is just an idea even today. I think it is yet to happen. Now, at least manufacturers and the contract manufacturers, or manufacturers and the suppliers, vendor onboarding. So these are some of the down-to-earth use cases which are happening now. And once the onboarding and the organizations coming together, forming consortiums happen, then the next step would be, order management and all these things. And then on top of order management, the track and trace and everything. So this is a logical order in which the adoption should go, and we are driving trust flow in that order. And the intended benefits would be a collaborative order management, where every user across the organizations can have status updates, real-time status updates, and automatic reconciliation of documents like PO, shipping bill, goods receipt notes, and all. A uniform user experience, because all the users across organizations can use the same application. And again, when we talk about sustainability, the theme of panel discussion today, see, recalls is something which is again very important, because you can't call all the batches just because there is one spurious batch available somewhere. So if you have track and trace, better traceability, obviously you can selectively call a couple of batches which you feel got infected with something wrong, right? So I think in that context, because supply chain being a multi-tier organizational setup, you need not do a multi-layer recall. Rather, you can, with one click of recall, you can create reverse purchase orders and you can do the recall. So that is one important feature trust flow supports. And auto replenishment. Obviously, once the goods receipt notes are received, obviously the inventory gets dynamically updated, and based on the quantity available, a smart contract can trigger a order without waiting for someone to place a order. And of course, dynamic capacity planning. So we can optimize the inventory capacity faster, because you have real-time data on what are the goods received. So you need not wait for someone to actually update the data into the inventory. Rather, the GRN will automatically update the inventory data. So I think these are some of the things which we worked on. And even if you look at ROI, so the number of touch points and interactions can be brought down drastically, and paperwork other than regulatory requirement can be completely eliminated because everyone has same version of truth. And let me quickly show you the interface of our application. Okay, so 1 second. So basically, this is a Hyperledger Fabric driven network, and so we have various channels across which organizations can maintain n number of peers, and we have smart chain code logic for each channel, and there is an super admin for the whole consortium who can quickly onboard the organizations based on their org type. So basically, we have designed our trust flow with org type and role type management driven logic, so that tomorrow, if you want a regulator to be part of this consortium, we can quickly define that org type and what is a role type and where to put that role type into the workflow. So all these things are something which are loosely, I mean, it is soft coded so that the customization is always possible quickly. So once you onboard the organizations, you can onboard admins for each organization as a super admin. So we created this as a platform where like n number of stakeholders can eventually onboard based on their org type, and the consortium super admin will be able to onboard the organizations and do the I mean, that exchange, the data exchange, which we are building as a separate thing, will be integrated to this, so that every application works in silos. Silos in the sense on their value stream, and all these value streams will be aligned so that the operations flow. And of course, we also have a workflow-driven system where you can actually have, for a given purchase order, you have all the documents reconciled automatically at one location. And you can actually look at the comments, the pallet information, the logistics information, what is the temperature. So we have IoT integration into this, so that we also capture what is a median temperature maintained at every level of transfer of ownership. And again, the purchase order history. So if you look at, primarily we are focusing on pharma industry, because as per pharma regulators, DSCSA and some other regulators, all the supply chains, pharma supply chains should have transaction history, transaction documents, and verifiability or trackability to saleable unit of pharma product is something which is mandated by 2023 to 25. Everyone should be able to achieve that, and now they are relying on EDI. But now we are at least working with a couple of pharma companies to actually drive that into blockchain for better efficiency and better trust flow. Because today, if supply chains is all about flow of goods, flow of information, flow of financials, trust is still flowing, or trust is still sitting in silos with the ERP applications. So with blockchain, we want to enable the trust to flow. And that is where we are bringing, so everyone can, I mean, every stakeholder can actually look at the status, what is the transaction ID associated with that, so that it is easy to audit at every level. And coming to the track and trace. So once the goods receipt note is updated, obviously the inventory is already there, and you can quickly search inventory and enter a batch ID, and you already get. So a stakeholder need not share the XML file through email and again updating it statically. So all those things, all those human intervention driven things are minimized, so that everyone has a seamless data available to act on. And if you look at a particular shipping bill and you want to go and track and trace, like 10785, you can quickly go scan QR, or you can enter it. It can be by entry as well. And once you submit, you know, okay, what is the timestamp, what is the transaction ID associated with it. And at relevant scenarios, we also capture what is a median temperature maintained, so that every stakeholder has visibility. See, today, I'll give you a simple, I mean, a known joke. We all got vaccine, but we never know what is the temperatures maintained at every step. And we are not sure of the efficacy. And we don't have a mechanism to actually check the authenticity of the vaccine we buy and we got. So it is just going on trust, blind trust rather. But here at least we are bringing, I mean, we have brought that IoT integration also, so that at least we can track the temperature variance at every level, and you can actually check the provenance of that product. So yeah, that's all from my side, and thank you so much.
Thanks, Arvind. That was a interesting question that you asked at the end. And we are all here trying to solve challenges, and then we have such questions. I believe blockchain technology is towards solving such kind of questions. And thanks for bridging us to
Yeah.
that example.
Yeah.
So
Now, if this is driven by a centralized IT system like manufacturer, so we never know whether manufacturer is really concerned whether a end consumer is. See, I'll tell you an open secret. When we spoke to a couple of pharma players, our responsibility ends when we do this B2B transaction with our distributor. What happens beyond that is not our concern. So, I mean, it was very shocking for us because they're all contract manufacturers, and some of the manufacturers are like, I mean, the end consumer today is not questioning, hey, are you giving us a way to authenticate the produce? Because WHO says 30% of the pharma produce is counterfeit, and no one knows whether what we are consuming is original or substandard, right?
Yeah.
So thanks again, Arvind. And up next, we have our next speaker. So Shritesh is Hyperledger mentee. Shritesh would like to update about the mentorship update, the project update. So Shritesh, over to you.
Yeah, hello, am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Just let me share my screen.
You're probably speaking on mute, Shritesh, but we can see your slides.
Yeah, so are you able to see my screen?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, sure. Okay. So let's start. Hello, I am Shritesh. I have recently done the mentorship in Hyperledger. And quick introduction about me. I am Shritesh. I have recently passed out from NIT Raipur, and I have a mentor like Kai Chen and Zheng Peng. And recently, I'm working with Samsung R&D Institute Bangalore. So basically, I have worked on Hyperledger Fabric, Hyperledger Bureau, and Hyperledger Besu to just yeah. So the aim of my project is to design an interoperability between two Hyperledger networks like Hyperledger Fabric, and for testing purposes, I have used the Ganache CLI network in a loosely coupled architecture. So the architecture of my project is like we have a side mesh contract library which is inherited by all the smart contracts, and which is listened by a mesher side mesh relay to uh, just to provide interoperability between different networks. So the side mesh library basically has three functions: prepare, confirm, and query global state. So these functions are used to just send a transaction, prepare it in first network, and to confirm in another network, just like that. And the mesher side mesh relay is just basically a Spring Boot web application which is responsible for triggering these functions in one or in other networks. So here goes my brief architecture about it. Like we have a Hyperledger Besu. Uh, wallet in the left hand side, and the Hyperledger Fabric network, which is running a smart contract on top of Hyperledger Bureau EVM. And first we have to like register the few contracts into my network, and then the user can define its own smart contracts using inherited by the smart contract side mesh library which I have made. And it is triggered by the measure component in one or the other networks. So I have used these technologies like Hyperledger Fabric, Hyperledger Besu. It is first it is run as a primary or secondary network, and Besu can be used to interact with the primary or secondary network and using Web3. So, and Fabric chain code EVM is required for running Ethereum based smart contracts, Solidity based smart contracts on top of Hyperledger Fabric. So the measure component is built on Spring Framework, and for testing purposes, I have used Ganache CLI, and Truffle Suite and Web3, just like that. So my main objective was to just like understand the my mentor has made this entire ecosystem in using 3 Hyperledger Fabric networks in chain code. So basically, my first objective goes like to understand that network and to convert the entire chain code into the Solidity based smart contracts, and to interact with this Solidity based contracts, we need a event driven web application, which is a Spring Boot application which runs on Docker. And third objective is to like make a sample network and make this whole ecosystem working. Same goes for my deliverables. First, the side mesh library, measure component, and a sample network. So I have accomplished this project with a few tweaks in the side mesh and measure library with some changes in the initial design document. Like some things are not working in the chain code, so I have implemented that in the Solidity, and some things I have removed so as to like improve the design. And the most challenges I have run into like running the Hyperledger Solidity based smart contracts on top of Hyperledger Fabric is the most challenging part for me. And understanding the Go implementation of chain code and converting it to a Solidity based smart contracts, it's also a tough part. And for the future works, I would recommend to like we can support multiple networks, like not just Ethereum based. We can also support like multiple Solidity based smart contracts networks, or we can use this service mesh concept to extend this design into different interoperability to achieve interoperability between different different blockchain networks. And here are my project results, like the initial design doc and wiki page, side mesh library, and all these things. And for the inside skin, I have learned to like build an open source, how projects are built in open source development, and writing a better code and maintainability. The most important thing I learned about in this mentorship program is not to hesitate to ask, just like to clear up your queries. And mostly my time zones are very different from my mentors, so I have to like wait for 2 to 3 days to just to get a few queries answered. Yeah. Just like, thank you. And any questions?
Thanks, Ritesh. I believe the interoperability or cross-chain communication across EVM and then any other contract with just deployed on Fabric, for instance, that's an interesting project. And we would like to know, have more deeper insights, or probably you can have more detailed presentations in upcoming sessions and
Yeah,
also
yeah,
ask for
definitely.
open source contributions. And thanks. You can find a link that Kamlesh posted on the chat channel, which takes you to all the mentorship projects for 2021. And also there will be new mentorship announcements happening in the next few months. So if you are looking for mentorship projects from Hyperledger, please do watch out that space. And also from 2021, Hyperledger opened it for anybody, not just for students, but anybody can participate in the mentorship projects.
Okay.
Thank you again, Shritesh. It was insightful. So we also learned today that one of our members from Hyperledger India chapter is celebrating her birthday. Wish you a happy birthday, many, many happy returns of the day, Srusti.
Thank you, Arun.
So we
Yeah, happy
will,
birthday, Srishti. His birthday?
yes.
Okay.